In today's video, we are going to be talking about Airbnb for London landlords and answering a lot of questions that we constantly get from our landlord base, as well as people who are landlords who are going to be working with us. It's an important strategy that needs to be understood, and that's what we're going to do in this video. So thank you very much for tuning in. My name is Ehsan Ahmed. Welcome to my channel. This video is brought to you in cooperation with Right Room, London's leading HMO provider and management company. So first and foremost, what is Airbnb? What is short letting, and why is it so relevant? So short letting, from my understanding, has come into the business or become relevant into a landlord strategy over the last, I'd say, 5 to 7 years. And we've seen an influx in it where we've seen a lot more tourists come into London, etc., and a lot of people have taken advantage of it. And effectively what it is that you list your property on short-term rental platforms like Airbnb and booking.com, and you rent them out by the night with the aim of making a premium as in comparison to the traditional long-term rental. Now, this is something that can yield massive results, and typically, you can have months where you have maybe double the earnings of what you would have on the long-term rental side of things. It's important to note a couple of things. First and foremost, it's not guaranteed. Number two, unlike the misconceptions out there, it's not something that happens month in, month out. So there is a high season, there is a low season. You get periods where you do really, really well, and then you get periods where you do terrible. And overall, it's really not worth the headache if you're going to end up with the same net money as you would on a long-term rental, which is so important to bear in mind. So that's what it is. It's become sort of prominent, like I said, over the last 5 to 7 years, and a lot of people are interested by it. Now, what does it take to do it? So typically what it takes to do something like Airbnb or short-term rental in general is you're going to be providing serviced accommodation, and you're going to be providing the linen, you're going to be providing regular cleaners, you're going to be providing sort of flexible check-in, check-out times, as well as access, etc., etc. It's effectively like a hotel, and the work that it entails is quite frankly quite a lot. It's not an easy thing to do, and it's not something that anybody can do easily, if that makes sense. It does require a lot of legwork, and there's a lot of issues that can arise as a result of it. So one of the things that's important to bear in mind is the 90-day rule. So London implemented the 90-day rule, which basically means that you cannot rent your property on a short-term rental for no more than 90 days of the year. And for a lot of our landlords, that's actually a huge benefit, and I'll tell you why sort of later on into the video. It's important to note that there's a couple of boroughs that are a lot stricter in terms of enforcement. So Westminster, Kensington, Chelsea, sort of prime central London areas where there's a lot more Airbnb short-term rental properties on the market. These councils have taken a tougher stance due to issues that they faced, local resident complaints, etc., etc. So it's very important to bear that in mind. Obviously, that could lead to penalties for non-compliance, and obviously there's talk of planning permission coming in also. Another thing to bear in mind is sort of tax implications. So how it could affect you. I know that there are sort of advantages for doing short-term rental from a tax perspective, so definitely look into that. So just to quickly summarize, the main advantages I would feel are sort of the potential for higher rental income. From what we've seen, are roughly around 20% net over the year. We've got the flexibility, which is quite cool. So you're not having to deal with sort of bad tenants who are staying there, long-term squatting, none of the eviction rights apply, which is a huge thing. And depending on the location, if the demand is high, you're going to do very, very well. Some of the challenges to bear in mind, though, and this is quite important, is stuff like just the general property management. Because of the additional usage and the turnaround, the wear and tear is typically a bit higher. You have to stay on top of things like cleaning, key exchanges, guest communication. All of this requires a lot more management. Obviously, you have the option of self-managing or sort of giving it to an agent on a management basis. Either way, it does require a lot more work. A few tips just sort of for short let management success would be just to make sure that your listing is optimized, to ensure that you have the best possible listing with professional photos, detailed descriptions, competitive pricing. All of that stuff will really, really help. Focus on guest experience. The more you do that, the more likely you are to get 5-star reviews, which will in turn sort of boost your listing and hopefully give you more occupancy. And just stay updated with sort of local regulations and bits and pieces, making sure that you're in line with your council and the rules that come across that they have in place for this kind of thing. Obviously, just as a side note to point out, our company Right Room does assist with all of this. So one way that we've sort of assisted many of our landlords implement this within the regulations of the 90-day rule is to list the property on Airbnb during the busiest time of the year. So that's typically high season, which is June, July, August, or it can be July, August, September, whatever 3 months you choose. It makes sense to have the property come vacant within those periods, put it on Airbnb for the short period of time, get the increase in rental, and then just before sort of October time, put it on a 9-month rental. And that's something that we do with a lot of our landlords, and it does result in a net rental increase in comparison to a longer term letting, which is really cool. So just going to get into a few questions in regards to Airbnb and short-term rental in general. I know a lot of you probably have these in mind. So yeah, let's start. So one of the first ones is, what are the key differences in income potential between short lets and long-term rentals? Okay, so across our portfolio, I would say that the key difference, kind of straight to the chase in terms of numbers, is probably about 20%. That's 20% on the long-term rental. And, you know, if you time it right and you're able to take advantage of the high season, then you will end up sort of increasing your chances of that maximization. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into it, like we just spoke about. But in general, if you're able to time the market right and get it on the market in the high season, then you will perform better than a traditional long-term rental. And yeah, the key difference is that a long-term rental is sort of 6 months plus, up to 12 years and beyond. And then the short-term rental is up to about 3 months. How do you optimize your Airbnb listing to stand out in a competitive market? Okay, so the way to optimize your Airbnb listing to stand out in a competitive market is to make sure that you have professional photos, to make sure that you sort of bring down the price initially to get occupants to experience your property and leave a positive review. Make sure that the description is accurate. If there are any flaws in the property, they're detailed. Ensure that you have easy check-in, check-out. And make sure that the cleaning team, linen, etc., you're prepared for the turnaround that comes with that. I would say they're the best ways to sort of maximize that. How do you ensure compliance with safety and licensing requirements for short lets? Okay, so in terms of safety, obviously we don't allow sort of one night stays. I feel like that would sort of eliminate most of the party goers and stuff like that. On top of that, we do have sort of devices in some of our properties that monitor noise. So, you know, if there is a party going on or something around that, then we get knowledge of that quite quickly. And yeah, obviously in terms of the guests that move into the property, we get IDs, referencing checks are done to an extent, and in some cases we will take a deposit as well, depending on the property. So that ensures that, you know, the guest has more than just the booking that they've paid on stake, and they're going to treat the property a lot better. What's your biggest tip for new landlords considering short lets? I would say my biggest tip for new landlords considering short lets is time the market. So use both short-term lettings and long-term lettings to your advantage. There's no point being a new landlord and trying Airbnb for 12 months of the year, in my opinion. I feel like it's just a waste of time. If you can, make it so that you go onto the market for short lets during the busiest period of the year so you can maximize your occupancy, and then go back on to longer term lettings just before the start of sort of low season, meaning that you don't have no voids to worry about. Hope that helps. Thank you very much for tuning in. Hope that video was beneficial to you guys, and I will see you on the next one. Thank you very much.